Hi there. My name's Jake Israel. My name's Israel. And I want to tell you the story of how I got that name. Because in the Bible, when somebody's name gets changed, that means it means it's a big deal. Not a big deal. Okay. So, there was this one time recently where my uncle Laban, he tricked me. I wanted to marry his daughter, Rachel, and he told me, he gave me his word. He said, if you work for me for 7 years, then I'll give you my daughter, Rachel. But at the end of 7 years, he tricked me into marrying his other daughter, Leah, and I had to work another 7 years to marry Rachel. Don't you hate when somebody can't be trusted? You can't trust what they say they're going to do. It makes it feel like you got to take things into your own hands and make sure that you get what you want. Well, our actions flow out of who we trust most. And when we don't trust someone, we do take things into our own hands. And, maybe you've read the story before of how my name got changed, but I'm going to tell it to you this time. You're going to hear it from me. And you're going to see how when I had to face my brother Esau, I really trusted in myself because I didn't really trust in God. And God cares that the people he uses to carry out his plan actually trust him. But do you know what God's willing to do so that you become the kind of person who trusts him? When God changed my name, that's when I really learned to trust God. Maybe you can learn from that today too. So here I am. I'm coming back from the land of Canaan because God told me, he said, go back to the land of your fathers that I promised, and I will make you prosper. I'll bless you, or I'll be with you. And so I'm going back from the land of Canaan. I got out of another sticky situation with Laban, and I'm coming back into the promised land. And these two messengers of God come out to meet me. And, it's one of those like, whoa, God is in this place and I didn't know it kind of moments, like pretty cool. But this time there were these two camps, these two army camps. And so I called it two camps. And as I got closer and closer to the land of Esau, my mind kept going more and more to the fact that my brother might still want to kill me, after that kind of taking his blessing and getting dad's inheritance instead of him, maybe he wants to kill me. And so I thought, I'll send messengers. I'll send my messengers out to meet Esau like God did, and I'll tell them what to say. So here's what I told my servants to say. I said, your servant Jacob has come to meet you, Master Esau, and your servant Jacob has much and is wondering if he might find favor in your sight. Well, when my servants came back and told me, all I heard was Esau's coming to meet me, and he has 400 men with him. 400 men, that's an army. Like, if that doesn't mean he's coming to kill me, this is bad. This is really bad. Esau's gonna get me. So I kept scheming. I kept thinking of a plan. And, I thought about it. I was like, God had two camps. I'll separate my things and my people into two camps. So that way, if Esau attacks the first camp, then where I am, I'll be able to make a break for it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks for that one, God. Okay. Have you ever had something you've done in the past come back to bite you? I think God knew that I was going to have to face Esau when he told me to come back. But I didn't really trust God, and I didn't want to face the consequences of what I did before. I acted like I've always done in the past. I made my own plan to get out of it. What have you done in the past when something that you've done wrong has, come back, or maybe God's revealed that or led you into facing that again? Well, in my position, I realized after I divided my people into the two camps, I realized I'm a devout man. I'm a pious man. I should pray. When you're anxious or afraid of something, you really ought to pray. And so I prayed. I prayed this great prayer. It sounded really, really righteous. And this is what I said. I said, "Oh God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, it was you who said that I should come back to this land and that you would make me prosper. And I'm unworthy of the loyal love that you've shown to me. I went across the Jordan with a stick, and now I've come back with two camps." So you got two camps. and my brother Esau wants to kill me, and I'm afraid that he's going to attack me. Oh, and also my family and these innocent, wives and children. So save me, God. And don't forget, it was you who said that I will make you prosperous like the stars in the sky and the sand in the sea. Amen. Well, after I prayed, I divided it up into the camps, and I did what I do best. I kept planning, I kept scheming, I kept devising, because even though God had given me direct verbal promises about who he was and what he was going to do for me, I didn't believe the one who gave me the promises. I didn't trust him. My prayer sounded like I trusted God, but I really lived like I trusted myself, and it depended on myself. So here's what I did. I realized that, maybe if I give the blessing back to Esau, that he'll accept me. I've got all these flocks and stuff like that. So I set aside 400 animals that I was going to give as a gift to kind of maybe buy off my brother and pay back him for, stealing his inheritance and blessing and that sort of thing. Like, I'll make him the master and me the servant, Jacob. So here's Esau. And I'm thinking that if I spread out the gift between me and him, that he'll run to my servants and I'll tell them to say, hey, Master Esau, this is a gift from your servant Jacob. And he's actually he's just back that way. And he'll run into one servant and get a gift, and then run into another gift and another gift and another gift. And by the time it gets all the way back to me, maybe he won't kill me. He'll accept me if he hasn't killed all of those other people first. Yeah, maybe that'll work. Look, now I know looking backwards, this is not a good picture of what it looks like to trust God. But I didn't really trust God. I didn't believe that God had given me his blessing. I thought I had to work my way into it. And so everything I had done in the past, I thought I had done a pretty good job of. I tricked my brother because he was stupid, and I tricked my dad, and I got his blessing. And Laban thought he got the best of me, but I got the best of Laban. You don't catch Jacob, Jacob catches you. This is how I lived. I trusted myself. I didn't trust God. And I doubt that God has given you the same promises that he's given me. But I had the promises, and I didn't trust the one who gave me the promises. So even if God gives you promises, if you don't trust the one who gives the promises, you won't live like you have the promises. And it's really easy to pray like it matters, like it's all up to God, but live like it really depends on you. So after I send my family across the river, and here's Esau, my enemy, all the way over here, and I think I'm in a really safe position, because between me and Esau, I've got servant, gift, family, and then me, and I end up by myself. And I think I thought that I was in the safest place I could be. But in the dark of the night, when I was all alone, someone attacked me. Who attacks Jacob? You don't get the best of Jacob. Jacob gets the best of you. And so I fought back, and we start wrestling, and wrestling is it's a whole body kind of exercise. It takes a lot out of you, but I'm not going to give up that easily. And so it gets later and later into the night, and earlier in the morning, and the sun is about to come up, and I'm exhausted, but I'm not giving up. And I see this man take his finger and just kind of point down to my hip, and boom, I'm down. How did he get that kind of strength at this point in the fight? I'm exhausted. Shouldn't he be exhausted too? That's not something a human... Oh. It dawns on me. I'm probably not fighting a human. You remember that those two army camps at the beginning of the story, and those messengers of God who came out to meet me? I'd kind of forgotten about them. And so here I am, and I realize I'm not fighting just any person. I'm fighting God. God attacked me. God is fighting me. This was kind of a frightening and terrifying and yet illuminating realization. We all want God to fight for us, but for me, I didn't realize that if God didn't attack me, if God didn't fight me, then I would have never learned to trust God to fight for me. I would have kept living as if life were about me and up to me, and I just depend on myself in order to get the things that I want. Sometimes, maybe not all the time, but sometimes, God will fight against us so that we become the kind of people who trust God to fight for us. We become the kind of people who actually trust God. And if he has to fight against us and literally cripple us in order to do it, he's willing to do it. What happened next is a lesson I've never forgotten. It's when I got my new name. It's the sun is about to come up, and I probably look like a wounded bunny rabbit fighting a grizzly bear. And the man of God says, "Let me go. It's almost daybreak." But I said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." See, from my perspective, I was used to always cheating my way into things. And I didn't believe that God had already decided to bless me and that I already had it. I've always thought that I needed to work into everything that I get. And so the man of God, in the answer to my request, says, "What is your name?" He knew my name. This is God here, people. He wasn't asking for information. He was asking for a confession. See, I didn't want to admit who I was. And the last time that I had sought somebody's blessing, I used Esau's name to get the blessing, not my own. I hadn't believed that God had decided to bless Jacob, that I was the one that he was going to fulfill his promises to Abraham and to Isaac through. And so when he asked for my name, he was really asking for me to surrender. And in order to be victorious and experience the blessing, I had to let God defeat me. And so I said, "I am Jacob." That was my white flag of surrender. And he said, "No longer will you be called Jacob, but Israel, because you have fought with men and with God and have prevailed." Now, I know it sounds like, I wrestled enough and got the right thing in the end. But I remember walking away from that situation. You don't go toe to toe with God and see his face and walk away living. No, this is God. Like, if I was alive because God let me live, I realized I had survived that. I knew who won that day. But because I let God win, I knew that I would be ultimately victorious and experience the blessing that he had promised me. See, Israel means God fights. And when God fights, God wins. He beat me. And I realized if God fights, then he's who I need to trust, not myself. And moving forward from that day, I knew that I needed to act out of that new trust in God to be the one who fights. Now put yourself in my shoes. If you found out that God was fighting you and you're fighting with God, and he asked for your name, the name that encapsulated your nature that was wrong or self-seeking or self-trusting or deceitful, what name would he ask you to confess? And what name would you give him? And then what name would God rename you? Imagine if God said, "No longer will you be called Achiever, but you will be called God Achieves. No longer will you be called Anxious, but you will be called God Protects. No longer will you be called Broken, you'll be called God Restores." See, my name was a reminder of who God was and how I live in light of that. And there would be times in my life as I continued forward that I would continue to act like Jacob. But I had a new direction in my life. And even the people who would descend from me would sometimes act like Jacob. And God would even fight against them if it meant that they would learn to trust God to fight for them. So for me, I knew that the act of faith, walking away from the situation, was rather than putting my family and this gift in front of me to meet Esau, I was going to be the one to face Esau first. That was my act of trust. So what about you? What is God leading you to face right now? What is he asking you to trust as you carry out his plan? And do you trust in him to carry it out, or do you try to take things into your own hands? Do you sound like you trust God, but really live like you depend on yourself? What is your act of faith and the trustworthiness of God's character going to be? Learn from my mistakes. I didn't want to face my brother, and I wanted to act like it was all up to me. But when God fought me, I learned who fights and who wins. And I act now as Israel. My new name is a reminder of who God is. And you can live that way too.